Episode 9 is set to end the Skywalker saga and the sequel trilogy itself by writer and director J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio. This is Mike Zero. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, one aspect of this movie that I personally am really looking forward to seeing is exactly how J.J. Abrams is going to utilize the character of Luke Skywalker in this film in comparison to how he was used in the past movies within the Skywalker saga itself. Now, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about this film when it comes to some of the set leaks, the set designs, the concept art and storyboard descriptions, etc. One of which has all to do with the character of Luke Skywalker and Supreme Leader Snoke in Episode 9. Specifically, a description of one of the flashback sequences in the film, where it's described that Luke is escaping the rubble on top of him from a collapsed hut by Ben Solo. It's described that Luke is standing in front of his burning Jedi temple, and eventually walks into his Jedi temple. It's described that Luke begins to hear the voice of Supreme Leader Snoke reaching out to him, where it's said that Luke begins to see Snoke's figure in the distance, and in the main meditation location in his Jedi training temple, where Luke is described to ignite his green lightsaber, taking 2 strikes at Snoke, where it's said that Luke realizes that he is not there. It's said to be a moment in which Snoke is mocking and taunting Luke for his failure and his defeat. It's described to set up the grudge between both Snoke and Skywalker, as well as how Luke realized it was Snoke who was responsible for what Ben did to the Jedi Temple. Another goes over Snoke appearing again in front of Luke, where Luke tries to force push Snoke, only for Luke to create a hole in a wooden wall before Snoke vanishes by use of force projection. So I want to go over a couple of parts about all of this. Now, we do know that J.J. Abrams is really going to be doing, a lot of crazy and wild things in this movie in comparison to what he did in The Force Awakens. Again, I think a lot of people forget that J.J. Abrams only got to really handle a piece of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, right? And you can only imagine what he wants to experiment with in Episode 9 now that he is actually officially going to be a part of a second Star Wars movie within a whole entire trilogy. So with that being said, you can only imagine what he wants to do with the character of Luke, Snoke, Kylo Ren, and all these different characters that will be making their way into this film. So first things first, I want to go over the grudge between both Luke and Snoke. Now, this scene in particular sets it up perfectly, where it definitely does fall directly in line with exactly how Luke actually got to know Snoke a little bit more, and how Snoke got to know Luke Skywalker a little bit more in person, to a certain extent at least, right? As well as introducing the concept of force projection to the character of Luke Skywalker. So the other thing that I do want to go over that really does pique my interest is, of course, this would also serve as a moment in which Luke Skywalker explores the Jedi runes, his burned, Jedi temple that was caused by Ben Solo and some of the Jedi that actually turned against Luke Skywalker and his other new generation of Jedi. So this whole entire sequence where it is indeed Luke Skywalker going up against Supreme Leader Snoke, where he ignites his green lightsaber and takes 2 strikes against Snoke, realizing that he is only a force projection. So what I really like about all of this is that if you think about it, J.J. Abrams never got to handle the physical version of Supreme Leader Snoke, right? J.J. never got to do any of that, and it seems as though that J.J. may very well just get his shot at introducing his own version of Snoke, where he's not in the form of a regular hologram, as he was in The Force Awakens. So with that being all said, I really feel like it would have been more consistent if J.J. Abrams was the director and writer of all 3 movies in a row. I think that it would have been a better route for the Star Wars sequel trilogy. I think things would have felt more connected, if you will, students on the ground in front of the training temple. So you can really see what J.J. Abrams wants to do in order to incorporate a lot of dark elements into this movie. We do know that this film is going to have a lot of darker elements than that of Revenge of the Sith, which honestly, guys, I'm not quite sure if Disney and Lucasfilm are going to be okay with that. They may dial it down a notch here and there when it comes to some of the themes of the actual sequences. Who knows what they'll do? But I feel that a dark Star Wars movie is always a great Star Wars movie. If you look at The Empire Strikes Back, that is a great example. To me, darkest Star Wars movie ever, aside from Revenge of the Sith. So, looking past all of this, by far, Snoke, it's a character that really grew on me, right? In The Force Awakens and in The Last Jedi. It was kind of disappointing to see him go so fast within the middle of the actual trilogy, given of how prominent of a character he really was. I mean, this is a character that built his own order after, of course, the fall of the Empire. This is a character that turned Ben Solo, an actual Skywalker, to kill his own father, Han Solo. So you could really see, how big of a character Snoke really was in the sequel trilogy and what kind of effect he really had on the actual stories that are told within the sequel trilogy itself. So this whole entire sequence involving both Luke Skywalker and Supreme Leader Snoke inside of the Burning Jedi Temple, as well as outside of the temple where Luke begins to hear voices of Snoke, it also lines directly up with what we heard in the novelization, where at one point in time, both Luke and Snoke connected, at least mentally. It's implied in the book that they at least crossed paths, mentally speaking, of course, throughout the Star Wars universe at one point in time. Anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.